The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this episode of ForceCenter is one of our deep dives. We're going to dive deep into a real simple question: what makes Star Wars good? And we're going to offer some opinions about that. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I knew we were talking about this. I knew what the show was going to be about. Then I got the notes and saw that title and went, I don't know. Can I answer this? Find out.
You can answer from your heart, which is going to be great. Before we get into Ken's heart and mine, which sounds scary, but it's not. It's a good thing. Getting into the heart in a good way. We always want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week we are recommending Tempest Runner by Cavan Scott. It is an audio drama in the Great High Republic ongoing story. If you want to check it out, you can download that free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for a free audiobook, but that is not all.
That is not all, indeed. We have another offer from our friends at Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, and they are offering 35% off across their website if you use this special link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, The Secrets of the Sith. We said last time out, go ahead and give the gift of Sith for Christmas, and do so by using this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I already have this book, and I hope that somebody gifts it to me. I really like this one. Anyway, let's dive into how much we love Star Wars and really why we picked this topic, because this is actually our first episode with a new hosting site, Acast. And we know with that, it's an episode where maybe some new listeners might be jumping on. So we thought it'd be a really good time to do an episode that kind of introduces our ForceCenter perspective. So here on ForceCenter, our general tenet has always been celebration. When we got started, that was a word that you'd been using a lot, Ken, to just describe how you wanted to talk about Star Wars. And I was so excited to come into that idea of celebration. And we've, continued that. We want to share what we love. We often want to share it from a critical point of view and really dive into why we love things. We also talk about things that don't work for us, but hopefully we always do that from a calm point of view that acknowledges those opinions as exactly that, opinions. But honestly, a lot of what we do is celebration, and that celebration takes a ton of different forms. We love doing deep dives, discussing the big themes, the stakes, the emotional canon of Star Wars. But we also love Star Wars for being just big and weird and a thrilling adventure serial, right? We love that Star Wars can range from the horribly dark tragedy of Anakin Skywalker to a planet of fish people called Mon Calamari, and we can discuss the tragedy of Anakin with a sense of humor and discuss the fish people with great reverence and depth. It's one of the beautiful weirdnesses of Star Wars. So we thought a good topic to sum up a lot of our interest, a lot of our perspective is this, simple, straightforward question of what makes Star Wars good. So we're going to discuss some of our favorite things in the galaxy far, far away, from the meaningful moments to thrilling moments to just super weird moments. And to get us started in that, Ken, I want to ask you about the big picture for you. What brings you back to Star Wars after being a fan for decades, after talking about it multiple times a week for 6 years on ForceCenter? What brings you back? What is the core heart of your fandom?
I think to boil it down to one word, it would be inspiration. That flows nicely into words like, guidance, enlightenment. That's really what I do take from Star Wars. This is great. It's a great way. I say the greatest saga ever told. That comes from a marketing piece of material around Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of great stories out there, a lot of great movies, a lot of great franchises, a lot of things that I love. But Star Wars, more than any of them, has continued to just meet me on the path my life is on at various times, and has inspired me, made me think, and just moved me forward with a sense of comfort and joy and entertainment. We're going to talk about some of the specific things, but the pew, pew, pew and the lightsaber fights are all part of it. But I think what's given it the staying power is continued inspiration for my life.
I think that's really great, and I think similar to the way I feel. Often when people ask about like how can you come back to Star Wars
Mhm.
when especially when the discussion around it can get really heated and all that kind of thing. I always think of the image of Luke staring into the twin sunsets from the very first film, and how that much that connected with me as a kid when I really identified with Luke. Of I wanted to take my first steps into the larger world, right? And that moment has a sense of longing to it, right? But there's also a sense of hope and beauty. And it's only grown with me that moment and that feeling over the years, because there's this huge sense of something more, of like a part of that moment is Luke not just selfishly wanting to go like, I want to have an adventure. I don't like doing my chores anymore. It's much more the sense of like, the world is huge and I want to be a part of it. And as I've gotten older and really like to dive into the big ideas of Star Wars, I think that sense of something more, I think in some ways that's what the Force is a metaphor for, the idea that we are all connected. Anything is possible. And whatever this sense of something more that you're feeling is, it's just over the horizon. Like all of that is in that shot. And I think that's one of the big things that keeps me coming back to Star Wars. And then the other thing for me is a term that we use a lot, which is tension. Um, there's so many different ideas in Star Wars, and I think that they're often at tension with one another, and they're kind of meant to be, right? It's
Yeah.
a story about the new and old. It's a generational story. It's called Star Wars, and it often preaches pacifism. There's a tension between the thrill and the moral, right? There's a tension between this being this sort of romantic mythic story and then that like real realism of like, but how do the lightsabers work? To me, one of the biggest tensions ultimately that we're going to talk about a lot on this episode, I think, is what keeps me coming back to Star Wars is it is this deep philosophical mythic stories with lessons about how to live your life. And it is also just a pulpy, weird, silly adventure serial, and it never compromises. It's always both.
Yeah, and crawling into all those corners of this galaxy is part of the appeal too, and that serial adventure vibe lends itself to a lot of different things in Star Wars I love, not just the action and the momentum of the stories, but a weird creature, a character, and a lot of those moments that just make everything pop. And for years, that was the stuff that probably drew me back. And then Star Wars started to find me in other ways, which is part of what I think you and I both celebrate, this idea of growth and change, which is so prevalent in Star Wars, but how you change along as a fan. And sometimes you might change to where, hey, maybe you don't connect with Star Wars anymore and you drift off after original trilogy, special editions, prequels, whatever. But if you're like us, I think the journey continues to change you, continues to entertain you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to dive into some of those ideas by looking at Star Wars from some different ways. And there's so many different ways that fans could sum up Star Wars, but these are the categories we went with. We're going to talk about some of our favorite kind of deep, meaningful ideas, some of our favorite moments of thrilling adventure, some of the moments that are just damn weird, some that are funny, and finally, cute. Justice for the Ewoks, Porgs. I don't know if Grogu needs any justice, but maybe Babu Frick. Is Babu Frick cute to you, Ken?
Oh, I just watched him this last week, and yes, I'm in the corner of Babu Frick cute.
Boba Frick is cute. You heard it here, not first.
No.
Maybe last. Who knows? Let's start, Ken, with the thrilling, right? Star Wars is inspired in part by adventure serials. It is certainly, the big movies are certainly action adventure movies. So for you, across all of the storytelling, what are some of your favorite action moments or set pieces or chases, and why?
For this, I have to go to the original trilogy for both, and that's just my entry point into Star Wars. And you and I love hearing the different entry points of everyone out there. You might have, Tartakovsky's Clone Wars might have been your first. A comic book series from the 80s or 90s might have been your first exposure to Star Wars. Me, you, and a lot of folks, it's the original trilogy. And I think because of that, this question makes me think of two big moments. It's quite possible you and I share these moments, but I go to Endor and the speeder bike chase sequence. just blowing my mind in the theater. Seeming so fast and uncontrolled and scary, but full of action, full of heroism, and full of one of the coolest lightsaber moments of all time, just cutting that speeder bike's control vein off. And that one stayed with me. So when I left the theater at 7 years of age and was looking up to the stars and quite literally wondering what is out there, is any of this out there, and how can I connect to it? The lightsaber fights, Jabba, the Rancor scared me, but that speeder bike sequence is one that I was obsessed with. I read a lot about, and when I learned that they used action figures and cardboard tubes to do test shots of it, oh my God, my mind was blown. Like, you actually make this stuff? That sequence is the first one that comes to mind as being so big for me.
Yeah, and I want to prompt you to share your own story of your tree in your backyard, because I think that's so vital to your speeder love.
Yeah, I was at the time at a backyard. It was a little kid's dream as a backyard for as much as a lower middle class family could provide all the dreams for their kids. I had a great backyard to play G.I. Joe, Transformers, Star Wars, baseball. I had a hole in the ground that made, it was like a foxhole if I wanted to, fight like in a military capacity as kids for some reason want to do. And then I also had 3 or 4 palm trees, actually. They're large now. I drove by them last year and they're big now. But there were 2 of them were angled almost just, flat, horizontal, sticking out from the base of the tree, and I could climb on them, and that was my speeder bike. And some days I was the biker scout, and Joseph, I love biker scouts, probably my favorite design. And other days I was Luke or Leia's friend. I'd create a character, and I was a rebel with them. And otherwise, it was another adventure. It was always on Endor. I couldn't imagine speeder bikes being anywhere else but Endor. That blew my mind a little bit later. I was like, oh yeah, I guess you could take them other places. And I just would reenact or tell my own story inspired by that sequence over and over and over again. You couldn't see me from the street, but if you could, my neighbors looked out their window. They're like, why is little Kenny on that palm tree for hours?
I love the idea that you might have made up a character, like maybe even based on yourself. Like, I am Star Wars character Zap Kensok, and I'm riding my speeder bike. Yeah, I love that story, and I think for me, it highlights, I think, this special magic of that adventure serial thrill of like, what's a good action scene or adventure scene is it makes you want to play it.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you're a kid or if you see it in the theater as an adult and you're like, I want to jump in my car and drive fast. Mm-hmm. I want to show you how the Falcon should have escaped that, in my car now. And I think that's just such an important part of what I think about when I think about what is thrilling in Star Wars.
You said something we talk about a lot here with that playground test. And I don't know what kids these days are doing. Do they have playgrounds or not? I don't know. But in our day, we played under the sun. And you would go out and reenact Star Wars, and it's some wonderful stories around that. But later on, coming out of Attack of the Clones, a movie initially I had to kind of wrap my head around. We're big prequel fans here. We love those movies, but it's been a journey, and that's okay. That's another thing we'll discuss some other time, the journey of Star Wars as a fan. But I remember thinking, okay, I don't know, there's a lot of things I didn't like. Don't like that 3PO humor. But I told my friend, but I got to tell you, that battle at the end of the movies, some of the shots, the kind of zoom ins on the troop carriers and everything, it made me want to go to a playground and play Star Wars again. Here I am in my mid-20s at the time. and he goes like, no, I get it. I'm with you on that. And that's something that's pretty valuable. It's that playground test.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I'm going to jump in with one of mine here. As I was growing up, because it connects with what you're saying, as I was growing up, absolutely tons of original trilogy moments that I could share. Luke with the lightsaber, doing the flip above the Sarlacc pit and grabbing the blade. And, I imagined Luke everywhere. I imagined myself as Luke. So I grew up wanting, like so many people who were exposed to Star Wars then, any cylindrical object was an opportunity to pretend that you were a Jedi with a lightsaber. So I so grew up with that. And then when the prequels came out, Phantom Menace in particular, like a lot of people our generation, I had our ups and downs. We're big fans now. But one of the things that I just loved, like absolute dream come true, was everything about the Darth Maul fight with Kenobi and Qui-Gon. But in particular, one of my favorite action scenes is always going to be once Qui-Gon has fallen, Obi-Wan is waiting for that laser gate to shut down, and he just flies at Maul, and it's that long-held shot where you don't cut away. and it was, to me, at that time in my life, the coolest thing I had ever seen. Like, did he do a block behind his back? Do they like sort of spiral away from one another like they finished a dance phrase? I know some people don't like that, but I love that because it's like they're like, we know all the moves and we're trying them on each other and looking for one another's weaknesses. It's so fast. It's so flowing. It was so cool. And I was no longer on playgrounds, but at that time in my life, I was doing a ton of sketch comedy and lucky to be doing it in sort of nerdy settings. So I saw that and I was like, this is my opportunity to live it out. And, you know, my friend and I did a comedy sketch where the comedy was really an excuse to just convince people to pay money to watch us attempt to act out Maul versus Kenobi on a stage in a theater, which we did with those plastic lightsabers. I broke many Darth Maul lightsabers being Kenobi to my friends Darth Maul. So it's like, it's always going to be one of my favorite moments because I got to fulfill the fantasy. I had the thrill of trying to be it, you know?
Yeah.
Play it,
be it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's another moment for you?
The other one I want to go to is, and I discussed other places, but like I saw Star Wars, saw New Hope in a drive-in, but as one, don't remember it. Come back, see Return of the Jedi, and then it was like, Mom, Dad, this seems to be one episode of many. Are there others? And I saw Empire Strikes Back last. I did see New Hope and then Return. So, but it all happened so fast that I wasn't like super spoiled. Like, you know, it's weird how that works. But after seeing Jedi, which is full of action, which is full of victory, which is full of the end of the story, go back to Empire. And the battle on Hoth remains one of my favorites, as it is for so many other people. But what always got me, and I carried that through adulthood, is the shot of Trey Callum, who now I know is Trey Callum, and two is Bob Anderson, sword fighter and choreographer extraordinaire, playing the rebel officer, looking through his his binoculars there, or monocular, I think it is. You probably remember more than I do. And seeing that foot of that walker come down, and then he pans up, right? And then you got the thump of the walkers, and Imperial walkers are on the North Ridge. And that whole Hoth battle is amazing, right? And the action takes off, and the rebels kind of survive, not necessarily win the day. That concept wasn't with me, that they just survived, you know? I hadn't learned the Holdo lessons yet of survive to the next day. That's sometimes a victory. I was terrified. Terrified in a way of, here I am, maybe 8 by this point, wondering, what would I do? How do you look out and see this foot stomping towards you? And there's 5 of these beasts, these metallic beasts coming towards you, and you stay and fight. That really hit me young. Young. And do I understand all the philosophies of it and the life lessons in it? Not necessarily then. No, it's not the point. That's the genius of Star Wars, yeah? But that stayed with me, and that's why I still love the battle. And I can still go to that moment and now know more of the names and know who played the characters, but it doesn't matter. All that goes out the window, and I do kind of get those chills again. If there comes the oppressive foot of the Empire, and are you going to stay and fight it? It's a tough question to answer, because what would you do when that stomping's coming towards you? I don't know. I hope I choose to do what the rebels did and what Trey Callum did, stay and fight. It's a big lesson. It's a big fight, and that grabbed me early on.
You're highlighting such a great thing that always comes up when we talk about the action scenes. It's those moments of tension before, right? And yeah, Trey Callum looking through the binocs or binoculars. You can use either. Either is canonical according to Wikipedia. Yeah, and those moments of tension before the battle are sometimes as thrilling as the actual moments of the battle. And then, yeah, the Hoth battle is so great. And you go on to relive that in almost every Star Wars video game for a while there.
Yes.
You'd get the opportunity, maybe not to be Trey Callum, but to try to take down a walker with his snow speeder. Yeah, I could go on and on about various childhood ones, but I also wanted to highlight for me a more recent one that really got me thinking about the adventure serial vibe, that sense of a thrill and sense of like that childhood joy of like, I want to just dance out of the theater and pretend to do this. And it came in Solo. In particular, like I remember was lucky enough to see an advanced press screening we were there together. I came home, and my wife knows I'm not a fan of spoilers. I'm not going to tell her anything about the movie.
Yeah.
But she was like, I know you don't want to tell me anything about it, but just, did you like it? And I was like, yeah, let me show you. And like, I turned around, and then like I spun toward her with like a fake blaster out, and was like, yeah, I like it. Like that was how I could express to her that how much I liked it, is that it gave me that sense of play. And the scene in particular is the Kessel Run. And I know there are some fans out there like, yeah, they didn't want to know the answers of Kessel Run. I get that. I respect that. But just looking at what that whole run is, right? That's kind of the adventure serial recipe of Star Wars in one big scene. It's about choice, right? It's about Han really finally getting to like seize the mantle, and do things his way. And that look of joy as he touches the controls, and he's finally in control, right? And it's got this sense of daring of like, we don't have any good options. The ship's going to explode if we go this way, and the Empire's bearing down on us. So I'm going to do this incredibly dangerous thing. You got that sense of different genres colliding, right? You got that sort of drag racing idea of doing the trick that Needles taught him, and is doing the cool skid, but then you go into this totally bizarre alien world where there are huge creatures in there that haven't even been like recorded or documented, right? And it's got this Lovecraftian cosmic fantasy vibe with the Sum of Verminoth, and the shot from far away of the Falcon being chased by just this giant space beast with a million eyes and tentacles, and it's just all in one scene. That thrilling sense of I think what Lucas was going for, of like, it's just fun to play in all these fantasy worlds and smash them together and get this just sense of, hey, if you were in a dangerous situation, could you make it out? And I love that in Kessel Run, just barely making it out. Like you can feel it, right? When he's timing it perfectly and says, now, and just barely makes it out before the door closes. It's just classic adventure serial.
Oh man, yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Just like all parts of Star Wars, the deep, the philosophy, the big moments, and then the creatures and the craziness.
Yeah, the creatures and the crazy. Any other big adventure moments you wanted to mention? We're trying to hold ourselves back.
Yeah, just small moments, and to force myself to kind of look to the sequel trilogy, not force in the way of there's nothing there for me. There's so much, but I always look back a lot and go back to what got me as in my youth. But one of the things in Force Awakens, right up top, when Finn and Poe escape from the finalizer there, and the TIE fighter chase down to Jakku, that doesn't go perfectly for them. I just remember thinking, yeah, they still got it, in the sense of this is an action sequence that would be something you'd take to the playground. And it just had that thrill. And there was so much pressure on that movie to be like, hey, can we bring Star Wars to a new generation? Can we, do soft reboot the franchise in a way, as they started rebuilding things in 2015. And I just remember that you got the dialogue up top with Kylo and Lor San Tekka and Poe's great. It starts so well, but that sequence, I just remember thinking, yeah, this is the Star Wars that I remember at 7, and it's the DNA is there on all fronts.
Yeah, it's got that great energy of Poe's line of, we're going to do this. I ain't calling you that. Like it's everything from the action to the mood of like, two new friends in a dire situation, becoming best buddies in seconds as they face horrible danger. Yeah. I mean, if I had seen Force Awakens when I was a kid, my brother and I would have pretended we were both stealing a TIE fighter in the back of our, parents' station wagon.
Yeah. And I once had someone in 2016 criticized that scene to me over lunch. They're like, it's so clear with that scene they're trying to build a video game level. And I was like, good. Yes, that's what I want. That's what I need. That's the serial adventure kind of feeling of, situation, problem, get out of it. Situation, problem, get out of it. And yes, it should feel like I immediately want to go to the playground or immediately want to go to a video game.
Yeah, and I think that, to me, is that legacy of the literal adventure serials with cliffhangers. And there is often that vibe of like, we just solved one problem, and now here's another. And I personally love that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's dive into from the thrilling, from the adventure serial to the depth. This is one where we'll have a hard time containing ourselves because we really love talking about the big, deep ideas of why on Force Center. But for you, Ken, what are a couple of the most meaningful big themes or ideas or life lessons or philosophies, and what moments from the stories are those ideas tied to in your mind?
Yeah, this is so. It's interesting. And gosh, I want to, you and I want to pass the ball around onto many characters and many ideas. I grew up and still am such a Han guy. So there's a lot there for me in the lessons of Han Solo. I still consider Leia like the quintessential Star Wars character, which also is in line with Padme being kind of this steadfast soul, fighting for what's right. There's a lot of great moments. I'm going to go to Luke in a way. I can't escape them. And if you end up wanting to discuss your own experience with these moments too, so be it. But I think it is at the heart of Star Wars, both when I watched it in my youth and I watched it now. The binary sunset, staring out at the twin suns, is everything to me about what Star Wars meant for me there. You touched upon it, that looking out and going, where am I in this big picture? I want to get to the big picture. I don't feel I can connect. There's a world out there I'm so far from. And knowing that your journey's already begun is something I have really needed to hear in my youth, especially going out of high school into college and having big goals, eventually moving to the big city. And every few years, I feel as though I'm staring out into that sunset and going, I like where I am, but what's out there for me? And then you got to be careful not to do what Luke, says, or what Yoda says Luke does all the time, where your mind's never on where you are, which is also a lesson I learned later on, and because of that, and to tie those kind of moments together, I go to Yoda and Luke in The Last Jedi, and the big talk of failure, the big talk about that being this great teacher, does, for me, connect to looking out on those twin suns, wondering where you fit into it all, not realizing you're already in it. And therefore, maybe some failures happen. Maybe things don't go the way. Maybe you don't get off that rock as soon as you want. And that kind of manifests and festers itself as this kind of this open wound, this thing of failure. And Luke as a different kind of failure. It's galaxy, galaxy affected. His fate of the galaxy is in his failures with Kylo and everything. But I love that there is Yoda telling him, hey, you're doing the same thing you did that's gotten in you this mess over and over again. And you can still have the chance to learn and grow from it, and not just learn about what happens when you get past those suns, but learn about how you maybe don't get past those suns sometimes. So it's these two lessons of your journey's begun. You're already on it. Find your place in it. And then, hey, it's not always going to go the way you want. Destiny takes you to choices. Sometimes you make the wrong one or make it a little bit later than you should, and that might lead to some failures. And don't worry, you still are going forward. You can still learn from it.
That is very, very great to tie those moments together. And I think it's one of my favorite things in Last Jedi that Yoda explicitly ties that together, of that being a core part of just who Luke is that he succeeds at strength and mastery. He succeeds at being in the moment, but he's always thinking about what's next. There's a part of him that's always going to be this kid wondering about what's beyond the horizon. And it's so beautiful at the end of Last Jedi when he has accomplished what he needs to do in that moment in exactly the way that it makes sense for him. He's saved people, but he hasn't raised his blade to anyone. And he gets to look into the horizon as his reward about what's next as I go into the Force. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and a reminder that the journey keeps going, huh?
Yeah. I think for me, it was hard for me not to go to a Luke moment. The first thing I wanted to share is just the idea of Luke throwing down his blade in Return of the Jedi. Many Star Wars pundits talk about it a lot. It is such a crucial moment. I often talk about it from the perspective of when I was young and before Return of the Jedi came out. I couldn't imagine it because I just hadn't really experienced stories yet like that. It was just a question of, could Luke ever become powerful enough to beat Darth Vader? And, I remember kids going, no, he could never become powerful enough. And, I didn't fully understand it when I was a kid, but then I grew to appreciate it more and more as I got older and realized, like, well, that is a powerful message to have the hero go, no, the way to win is to say, I have I have choice over my action, and I'm not going to be pushed into believing that aggression is power. I'm not going to give in to that fear. I'm going to choose something different is a really powerful message. But then when I really dive into that moment, so many different ideas that I love in Star Wars are embedded in that. You can see it many other places in Star Wars, but they're here, right? This great conversation between the prequels and the original trilogy. It's everyone in Star Wars, but in particular, this idea that is attachment a weakness or a strength? And you understand in the prequel journey, the Jedi's perspective of like attachment is dangerous because you could give into the fear of losing that person. But then Luke has this great victory where he kind of shows Yoda and Obi-Wan, no, actually attachment can be a strength if it is about love, if it's about selfless love, right? And the fact that he is being pushed to give in to hate and murder his father out of vengeance and fear. Vader had threatened Leia, so he has every right to fear for somebody he loves, and he stops himself from giving into that and appeals through this act to the attachment to his father, and that is what gives him the victory. It's also just it's a passing of a trial. Yoda kind of sets it up in Return of the Jedi of like when Luke says like, "Oh, so I am a Jedi," and Yoda's like, "No," that great little noise like, "Oh, you think you've graduated, huh? No, you have to face your father." And I always feel like there's this curiosity in Yoda of like, Vader needs to be stopped one way or another. The Emperor needs to be stopped one way or another. But a test of who this person is, who Luke Skywalker is how is he going to face it? Yeah. And the fact that he passes his Jedi trial, and he knows it, and he declares that I'm a Jedi like my father before me. In that idea of being fully formed of like, I understand what it means to be a Jedi. It's these kinds of choices, and it is a generational tale, right? Star Wars has always been a generational tale, with Luke starting his journey wanting to be a Jedi like his father and not really understanding who his father is or what that really means. And here he is, he's arrived. He has taken the mantle. He is a Jedi like his father before him. It's such a generational tale.
Oh yeah, amazing stuff. It's such a big part of the core of Star Wars, that sequence that you're talking about, the lessons that are there for us to pull from. And it was you and I talk a lot about how this came in an era where that wasn't the name of the day. It wasn't how things were kind of presented. It was, do you have an M60 on your side and muscles and all that kind of thing? And not to take anything away from the joy of those movies, Rambo or something, anything that out there. But this was 83 is kind of that era. Yes. And strength is power, and strength is and might is what to get and what to be, you know?
And how many trailers were like pitching it as one man alone, right? Yeah. This idea of this one figure, you know, and Luke's kind of rejecting that too, right? It's not just about strength, and it's not just about him.
Yeah, which, you know, again, not here to attack any movie that you loved. I love Rocky IV, okay? It's one of my favorite movies. I love all that. But I also think that means, especially if you came up in that generation, everything you're talking about is in that sequence. It's in those movies. It's there for us. I don't know if everyone pulled that from it at the time, and maybe even as time goes on. It still seems like, well, Luke went to face Vader and won. Well, how did he win? He won. Well, he threw down his blade and all those things you're talking about. I love what you highlighted to kind of say no to aggression, and this idea that is the way to go to get the kind of power you need to win the day. But you know, Star Wars warns against that. It's all there, but I love that you can engage with that when maybe you need to in life, and I hope other people do engage with that moment and that lesson when they need to in life.
Yeah, it's such a triumphant moment, and it's still to this day when you watch it, like it's perfect, but also almost feels surprising. It's so great. What are some other moments for you?
I mean, those two big Luke moments are powerful, but there's other ones that I focus on, and again, you pull maybe what you need, and I really believe it does fund you. You know, I say a lot, Joseph, that kind of tip my cap to that Carl Weathers stuff from that Mando behind the scenes stuff of Star Wars was been saying these things his whole life, but he didn't, when he needed to hear them in his early 20s, he didn't hear them. But he heard them later. And that's the great thing about Star Wars. You can go back to it. And so I go back to things like Phantom Menace, where the lessons of Shmi, which are valuable to the story of Star Wars, because she, I think, is responsible for a lot of this, goodness within the heart of Anakin and helping form and fuel his true nature. And that comes back again in these moments, even you and I are talking about, with Luke throwing down the blade and Vader saving his son. But I am one who can be, stubborn on the surface, but deep down, fearful of change. And that is a fear that is pretty dangerous. And it's not just changing your pants and getting a new style of jeans. It's relationships, jobs, choices, and growth. And it's a growth inhibitor. And so going back to Shmi telling Anakin as he's about to start this journey that he did want, right? He's dreaming about having a laser sword and being a Jedi. He's literally having dreams about it. And here's the chance it's happening. And he realizes, well, I got to leave my mom. Look, that's not easy, by the way. But in this space story, it's what he's got to do. And have her just a highlight of all the things, it's this fear of change. And that is at the heart of a lot of this. And I did not hear that in 99. I wish I did, because I struggled a lot with change in the early 2000s in my life. And it kept me back from a lot of things. Who knows where I'd be in life, career, relationships, otherwise. Very happy where I am. And that's also part of the lesson, Star Wars, right? That you're on your journey, whether you know it or not. But man, fear was an inhibitor to me. And so much of fear is boiled down to kind of what you were talking about earlier, Joseph. Like, oh, fear, well, you don't have courage. You're not going to stand in front of the dragon. That's a certain kind of overcoming fear, to be clear. But I think fear manifests itself in so many other ways, which is what George was telling us. And I needed to hear that later. So I go to Shmi in that advice a lot.
That is that's such a great a great lesson to take. And there were parts of Phantom Menace I really liked and parts that I resisted because it was different. Yeah. And Shmi was giving me some advice that I needed to hear in 1999. I was like, you can't stop the evolution of Star Wars any more than you can stop the suns from setting. Like, is what I needed to hear. There are just so many great ideas in Star Wars. I think one that I go back to a lot, because even with all of the cool fighting and the explosions and the thrill, this is that tension that I'm talking about, where there is just a huge idea of empathy, and it is presented in lots of different ways, right? It's when our heroes choose to fight, it is a victorious moment when they fight because they're truly trying to help someone. Right. It's right. Shmi's other bit of wisdom, one of many to Anakin, that he quotes back to her of, you say the biggest problem in this universe is no one helps each other. It is there in the way that Leia immediately connects and has respect with the Ewoks, and that is a triumph. There's so many examples in Star Wars of empathy, of we are all connected and we all matter equally. In a more recent storytelling moment where that really pops for me, it's such a small moment, but it's so important, is in The Mandalorian Season 1, the moment where Din Djarin decides to go back for Grogu, right?
Right.
He has empathy for another being, right? This little weird guy that is supposed to fit in a box in Din's world. It's not a being, that's a target, and he got rewarded, and Din should leave it at that.
Yeah. It's a check mark on a list.
Right? Yep. But he connects with Grogu as a being of, intrinsic value because he's alive and he exists, right? Yeah. And knows that he has delivered this creature to people who are not going to respect his inherent intrinsic value, right? Yeah. And it is such a moment of choice, which Star Wars is really big about. Personal choice of, when you see the walkers coming, what do you choose? Yeah. And for us as an audience, it's such an effective moment because, we're all screaming at the screen, right? Like, we're already in love with Grogu. Like, don't even know his name. Like, whatever we're all calling him then, Baby Yoda, or making up weird Yoda-thon names for him, whatever it is, Yaby, whatever people are calling him, like screaming at the screen, go get him, right? But from Din's perspective, hey, Din, is the intrinsic value of this being valuable enough for you to risk shattering every rule of every community you're in? to risk your own people, the Mandalorians, to risk pissing off this Imperial remnant, to most importantly, just break your code as a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And he decides, yes, empathy is the most important. So I'm going to go fight for empathy.
Oh, that's good. Good. Look at you pulling a modern example. Love it.
Trying to keep it a little varied. We could talk so much more about the big, deep ideas of Star Wars, and we will, and we do all the time across this podcast. But Ken, unless you have any others, I think we're going to take a quick break.
I have 5 others, but let's take a break.
I also have I have 3 others written down, and I'm stopping myself. So if fans want to guess, feel free to tweet us and guess what else we were going to talk about. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to keep talking about the things that make Star Wars good and even great to us. We'll be back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of what makes Star Wars good. Now I'm feeling guilty. We should have called this episode, What Makes Star Wars Great? Anyway, and I forgive myself, let go of the guilt and move on. So we talked about some of the adventure, serial thrill. We talked about some of the big philosophy. Now we're going to move on to one of our favorite things to talk about here on ForceCenter, and that is the weird. Ken, what are some of your favorite weird characters or moments in Star Wars?
Oh man, I gotta. In terms of weird weird characters. I'm gonna start with Salacious B. Crumb. On this conversation, I obviously seem to be going back to my real roots, going back to 1983. I both loved Salacious B. Crumb, was terrified of him, slightly maybe disgusted, but also wanted him as my friend. And therefore, I have a lot of Rancors in different forms, Funko Pops, whatever. I have a lot of Wampas and Funko Pops, but I also have a fair share of Salacious B. Crumbs. I need to get the actual real one you can get from Galaxy's Edge that Jennifer Landa has, our other partner in crime over here. That starts it for me, Salacious B. Crumb. It just everything about it, and then we'll talk about specific moment. It's when he's eating out 3PO's eyes, just ripping the cords out, and R2 shocks him, and then he's like kind of maniacally laughing, but also pissed off at R2. Everything about that sequence stuck with me from 1983 on.
Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously, as a kid, you're not like, I see. He is a twisted, inverted court jester whose job is to laugh and entertain and pick his boss up.
Right.
You're just responding to like the look, the cackle, right?
The look, the cackle. I remember my favorite things is, by the time Leia's in the still bikini there, laying in captivity, and it's the night scene, and Jabba's tails is kind of moving, and Salacious becomes like studying the tail. I never stopped thinking about that.
Yeah, it's these very lived in moments. And I think that's what really draws me to the weird in Star Wars of it. It's like, it's aesthetically odd, or it is maybe taking something from the real world and sort of mashing it up in a way. And there's this part of your mind that like always knows, like, I'm looking at a puppet, right? Yeah, that's a am I being emotionally moved by a puppet? Yeah, I am. Yeah. But it's always grounded. And it's that little tip of the iceberg of like, does Salacious stay up every night and just marvel at the tale of his slug crime lord boss lords? Like, you could break it down to like, oh yeah, no, there's a crime boss and he has this sort of sycophant who just loves everything he says and laughs at it. It's totally understandable, right? Totally. You could boil it down to like, when you're in school and there's a bully and then there's a kid who hangs out with the bully and just laughs at everything they say. Like, it's totally understandable, and yet it's pushed through this filter of, it's a slug and a monkey lizard.
Yeah.
And it just makes it delightful and unique.
It really does. Good old Sally B, as I call him.
Yep, absolutely loved Salacious B. Crumb, and still do. For me, I'm going somewhere modern to start because it is the most recent of my deep weirdo loves. In fact, when the character was first seen, I didn't know what the character's name was. It hadn't been released yet, so I called him Vat Weirdo. Turns out the character's name is actually Lulilo Primarch. He is one of the singers in Solo on Dryden Voss's yacht, The First Light. And this was just, to me, this was perfect Star Wars. Again, it's taking something that is ultimately really recognizable of like, okay, this is a crime organization's fancy yacht where they're putting a nice face on the deals they're making, and there's a lot of good food and a lot of good alcohol, and yeah, there's some imperial authorities, and they're maybe making quiet deals while having this fancy party. So who would you have there? Oh, you'd have an elegant singer, you know. And in Star Wars, the elegant singer is one woman in an amazing space dress, and of course the other elegant singer is an upside down frog thing in a vat.
Just floating there.
Just floating and crooning, right? Look, if I could have a different life path, I would love to float and croon in some way. It's so great. To me, it is one of the perfect examples of weird in Star Wars, of take the emotionally grounded and just put it in a bizarre form that makes you celebrate that dreaming, right? Of like,
Yeah.
you know, looking up at the sky and go, what all weirdness could be out there, you know? And sometimes what's out there is cool. It's a stormtrooper, a Mandalorian, and sometimes it's weird. Sometimes it's an upside down frog in a vat.
Still, one of my favorite moments in Star Wars is your dreams of that being a crooner coming true after months of speculation. Just the best.
Such a deep, lovely voice, too.
Yeah.
What are some other weird characters or moments for you that you like to celebrate in Star Wars?
Yeah, well, I'm going to character and moment combo here. And, you know, when I do think of weird, I think of, you know, a lot of creatures, a lot of weird moments like that. I love like the Happabore in Force Awakens. Good old Happabore butt sipping water while Finn's dying of thirst there. I love that creature. I love how weird that is. Even the Tito that Rey's dealing with, and the Luggo Beast. It's just so wonderfully weird. But I'm going to go from a little bit different direction here. Who I think three of the weirdest characters in Star Wars that are also some of the most memorable and most talked about. That is the father, the son, and the daughter on Mortis. Force gods trapped on this world to keep balance. They call Anakin and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. Is it real? Is it imagined? Is it a combination of all of it? What actually happened? What does it all mean? And will it ever factor in again? We got the world between worlds and other things that pop up in Rebels. I think about those characters a lot too, not for the deep philosophy. And you and I just recently dove into those on the Clone Wars report. Check that out if you want to rewatch the Clone Wars with us. But just like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that, like, you know, when the pod race is going on, when the Battle of Geonosis is happening, there's also these Force gods on a planet just waiting. And it's so weird and bizarre, and a little bit of, the funny stuff from Haight Ashbury in our real world, driving this forward. I don't know. It's a weird thing. And I just love it. And I love that it's there. And I love that it's part of George's Star Wars. And that others have carried that on, and it just allows for the weird and mythical and magical to be in this galaxy, and it all just flows down into life lessons for us here in Burbank. It's all there, and it's knights, it's Salacious B. Crumb, and there's Force gods on this weird planet.
Yeah, I think that's such a great example, because I would say, you know, depending on your perspective, there may be cool weird, right? I mean, they have a lot of different looks between the three of them, right? Like, the son looks like a great Sith Lord design, right? He's kind of classic Star Wars cool, red and black and ominous. And then the daughter and father did just kind of look like they just skipped out of somebody's Tolkien fan fiction, right? Like, that they're so high fantasy in their design, and I even think like some elements of Legend of Zelda kind of design, the daughter being so ethereal, and it is that sense of, part of what I love about Star Wars is it often has a why not sense to it of, let's play. Like, this started with Lucas going, I want to tell a myth. I really want to base it on these solid foundations of tales of good and evil, and going on a hero's journey and questioning yourself. But within that, I want to pull from all these genres I like that have been talked about so much of the Western and the science fiction and the fantasy and street racing and all that kind of stuff. But that Star Wars continues to have that exploration over the years and go, what else can we grab from, right? And Lucas himself obviously still being deeply involved in the Clone Wars, knowing that he's like, yeah, no, make them look like they tripped out of Return of the King. I don't care. That's great.
Yeah.
Even to modern things where, if it pans out the way that some of the trailers look to me, it looks like the Book of Boba Fett is going to be like, yeah, gangsters. Let's do it.
Yeah, right.
Let's do gangster movies. And the weird so often is a way to pull in these different flavors of genre.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially on display a lot in the Clone Wars, right? It's just like, let's do this. Let's do a Godzilla movie. Let's do horror. Let's do this, and let's bugs that go in your ears and nose, and just all over the map there.
Yeah, and I'm tempted to just list, all sorts of characters whose design is just bonkers. I remember a friend of mine who was older than me when A New Hope came out, always saying Moma Nadan, or Hammerhead, as he was known by his action figure name back then. It was just mind blowing because like that was so alien, it was almost frightening. Like super weirdo Neeper's Panpick in the in the background of Last Jedi, Canto Bite, who has a permanently open mouth. Like, there's so many just great freakish designs that have that sense of why not. But the other kind of weird thing I wanted to highlight is because growing up the original trilogy, I just accepted these things like they were legend, right? Like, I was so young, the way somebody would just like sit you down. It's like, here's how checkbooks work. Here's how the World Series works. Here's the history of painting. And you're just a kid. So you're just like, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get older and realize, wait, why did we make all these decisions? And for me in Star Wars, some of that was definitely the carbon freezing chamber of like, wait, they just froze him like a hunk of meat.
Yeah.
Like they're, taking him to a picnic and they didn't want him to, dry out or go bad. Like, but the one I really wanted to highlight is the Sarlacc pit, right?
Oh yeah.
That's another place where you can see genre, where you can see like, oh, it's like kind of a pirate thing, right? They're going to make Luke Skywalker walk the plank. You're like, I get that. That makes sense. That has historical and storytelling history to it. And like, but it's a desert, right? Okay. What if there was just a mouth that lived in the ground?
Yeah.
And especially you go back to pre-special edition when it doesn't have the beak and it's just a mouth with tentacles and teeth just wide open in the earth. Yeah. And just think of like, if you hit Star Wars at a young age, you kind of accept some of these things. And then you gotta go back and get to have that appreciation of like, that's just like daring and weird and fun and kind of scary as all hell.
Yeah.
That there might be mouths in the ground. I just love it.
I mean, I grew up near the beach, and so I'd go out on those sand dunes just terrified to take a wrong turn. Terrified, just in case. And I'm a big fan of the special editions. It brought a lot of new fans to Star Wars. Some changes I love, some I don't. Over the years, my dislike of the updated Sarlacc has just kind of dissipated. It doesn't even faze me anymore. But I remember at the time of being a little upset, primarily because of what you're talking about. I just like it's a hole in the ground that will kill you. Like what? So weird. And now you got the Little Shop of Horrors version, whatever. Like I said, I could care less now. I should enjoy the sequence. But yeah, I'm with you. That hole in the ground was weirdly terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. And now it gets to choose who it chomps instead of just having random baddies thrown into it. Poor Sarlacc. But I guess the Sarlacc's hungry. I won't presume to know what the Sarlacc is feeling. Anyway, any other moments of weirdness that you want to highlight before we move on?
I mean, there's plenty to choose from all over the place, but we can move on.
So let's move on to maybe some overlap with weirdness, possibly, and that is comedy in Star Wars. Comedy is such a huge part of this galactic cocktail of ingredients that makes the saga. And, I think all these ingredients from adventure serial to weirdness, right, to comedy, they can be kind of turned up or down depending on which Star Wars story you're watching, but they're always there. And I think comedy is one that represents itself in lots of different ways, right? You get that sort of a dry wit of Kasdan's script writing in particular. You get George Lucas himself has a little bit of a sillier sense of humor, right? So you get slapstick. You get lots of different takes on it, and all of the Disney Star Wars with so many different era of Lucasfilm. with so many different creators putting their kind of own comedic stamp on it. You even get, if you want to dive deep into the deleted Phantom Menace scenes, a longer extended cut of the Yopi fart. But no matter what kind of comedy you like, comedy and whimsy is almost always there. So what are some of the great moments of comedy that connect with you?
Yeah. And I'm trying not just to go back to what got me in, and my sense of humor is a little dry. It's definitely character and dialogue based. So therefore, I think I go to, you mentioned it, but like Kasdan's the banter between Han and Leia is something that just probably influenced me really young. Apologize to all romantic partners in my life. I just like a little banter. Would it help if I got pushed? It might. I died laughing at 7, and I laugh at that now. And I love a lot of examples like that. Their dialogue, but at the same time, I can't deny Han Solo tapping on 3PO's shoulder 3 times on Endor. I was on the ground. You had to pick me up off the theater. That was the height of comedy. It's not my favorite moment now, but it got me then. All that those are the great moments. But I got to tell you, and having just rewatched it, the C-3PO humor in Rise of Skywalker might end up being like a definitely top 5 kind of examples of humor in Star Wars. Grace and I were just watching, and we were dying laughing. We both love, and I know you do too, but if is this the afterlife or are droids even allowed here type of comedy that was on display there? Love all that stuff. And it was justice a little bit for 3PO, because he's involved with some of my least favorite humor, which is the Attack of the Clones kind of era humor, pun-based kind of wackiness. And it hits me every time. I just absolutely love it. It's such the character. It's such our shared history of the character. It's just so wonderfully performed and written. I love everything about it in Rise.
Yeah, no, I mean, not surprisingly, a lot of times we are aligned, and then definitely two of the places that my mind went. The 3PO line in particular in Rise of Skywalker, that was like so funny to me that I almost was like, did I hear that right?
Right.
Is when they are initially fallen under the sinking field there in Pisana, and they're all checking in on each other. And 3PO says, "You didn't say my name, sir, but I'm all right."
That's the best.
It is, they like slapstick if it's executed in the right way. I really, really love. Big fan of a lot of the things that have influenced the silent comedy that influenced Lucas, and that he's pulling from with the Laurel and Hardy of 3PO and R2's relationship, all that stuff. But I tend to really like the character driven stuff, and I like the comedy that it is coping with something dark, right? Or saying something that might be you maybe can't exactly say explicitly, but you can kind of get at with a joke. Right. And "you didn't say my name, sir, but I'm all right" is like that moment of like, is 3PO finally truly wrestling with the fact that he has been dismissed?
Yeah.
Like, he's been annoyed with it, right? There's those great moments when, like in Empire, when 3PO asks Han if he can ask about something, and Han's like, "Why not?" and walks away from him. He's like, "Impossible, man." But this is this different level of like 3PO finally being like, it's been decades. And I am going to ever so gently push back. You didn't ask after me, but I'm fine. Which is implicit that maybe you should start to think about asking about me. Then, followed like, is this afterlife or droids even allowed? It really feels like 3PO is just having this sort of like strange coming of age moment where he's like, I exist and I have value and I need to explore that in some ways.
Love that. Yeah, a total justice for 3PO. Totally.
Yeah. So well done. There's so much in the original trilogy that is just a great banter. I think Luke has some great lines that are sort of the light comedy that show character. I often go on about the "I care" line in A New Hope in Star Wars. When Leia's mad at Han and says, "I wonder if he really cares about anything," and Luke offers that like, "I care." Right. It's this great comedy because right off the bat, right, Han and Leia have this exactly what you're talking about, this fiery banter. They come from really different worlds, but they kind of speak the same. They say exactly what they mean to one another, and they don't back down. And then poor Luke in there going, "I just left the farm, and I want people to know that I care a lot." It's such a great moment to show all three of their relationship. Would it help if I got out and pushed has always been huge for me, like you were saying. I grew up, in Minnesota, where even at a very young age, I was aware that one needed to get out and push sometimes.
Right.
So that was very viscerally true to me, like especially that the Falcon was on an ice planet, on a snow planet. And Carrie Fisher obviously demonstrated to the world in so many ways that she had just such a great and easy way with comedy. Leia has a million great lines, but that one is just so well delivered and well timed.
Right.
Han's absolute classic in A New Hope as well. Of we're all fine here. How are you?
Yep.
And the thing that always puts that over the top for me is the line is funny, and the idea that he would kind of just try to BS his way, bad improv through a call. It's the wince, right? Where he knows immediately. Why the hell did I say that?
Why did I do that?
Yeah. What are some other examples for you?
It's funny you mentioned the solo stuff. The relationship that he has with Chewie is one of my favorites in Star Wars for a lot of reasons. And I love examples of it on both ends, which is some of the banter between him and Chewie in The Force Awakens, and the whole, like, what's the second time? And when he's talking to Tasu Leech and Chewie's got reactions, just muttering under his breath. Even, Finn asking, I thought Han Solo was a war hero, and Chewie shrugs. It's just their shared history. But then I love going back to where it kind of begins in Solo: A Star Wars Story. I love what's on display. I love their brotherly connection that's there right from the beginning with them, and so many just kind of little examples on display all through that movie, particularly going to the party you're talking about and Chewie double fist and drinks, and just him kind of just enjoying life off Kashyyyk, if you will. Han's trying to discover who he is. I love their relationship. It's again, like I said, one of the best in Star Wars. It's all about loyalty and growth and so much there, but it all at the core of it is just some really brotherly banter and connections.
Yeah. What should we drink to? Let's drink to and see where it goes. Is some great young Han Solo glibness, quippiness. I should also mention Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's one of my favorite characters, and I think one of the great things that connects the character is he always has this little bit of snark, right? He's always kind of looking at things from different angles, and this kind of expresses itself in comedy, where he's he always sort of pushes back using comedy. And sometimes I think it's just an honest expression of him being grumpy, and sometimes it's him kind of challenging someone to kind of get a reaction. Everything from very subtle in A New Hope when Han's like, "You haven't heard of the Millennium Falcon?" And like, should I have?
Yes.
It's a gentle poke, right? And like that is the exact same character where you go to Attack the Clones, Geonosis. Anakin's got that kind of ashamed look on his face because he knows he's going to be snarked at, and it's like, well, we decided we'd come rescue you, and he looks up at the manacles on his hands and says, good job.
Yes.
Just some great Obi-Wan snark all throughout.
Sassy one.
Last thing that I wanted to acknowledge and kind of get your take on is I think there are moments of Star Wars where you can absorb them as absolutely meaningful, packed with the crucial ideas of Star Wars. And because Star Wars has this great tension of being a weird, pulpy adventure serial and a deep myth, that they can be meaningful and funny at the same time. And I think, to me, the titan of this tension is Sheev Palpatine, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
Unlimited power is both like, yes, that is the mission statement of the Sith. That is the goal and the unachievable lie of the dark side. It makes you want unlimited power, and you're never going to get it. But also the utter height of it, how operatic it is. The fact that he has been I'm trying to pretend to be a nice politician forever, and now the mask can drop and I can just scream my truth.
Yeah.
When I was a kid in 5th grade, maybe good, maybe bad. I remember my teacher telling the whole class, sometimes I get so upset after school that I drive my car far away and I just scream. And it almost feels like what Palpatine is doing, of like, this is what I've been wanting to say for decades, and I just scream it now, and it's so over the top that it is funny and meaningful to me.
I'm with you. In terms of meaning, it is this, we always say we don't want to root for Palpatine, but we're always interested by him and McDiarmid's performance. But he's at this particular moment, believes he has achieved what no one else really has, which is this unlimited power. The goal of the Sith for generations. Some have maybe thought they had it. They've been close to it. In this moment, he's like, victory. And I love that George Lucas is like, no, turn it up higher. You got the 11, turn it to 12. McDarbo's just kind of like, okay, I'll really tap into something because it is what you're talking about. He's been doing, oh, I'm just a humble politician, and even in that sequence, he's trying to pull Anakin in with it a little bit there, and just explodes. And yeah, is it funny? Is it did some people view it as unintentionally funny? Sure, and it becomes so quotable. But over the years, it went from me going, man, that was a little silly, right? To, man, that's like one of my favorite moments in Star Wars.
It's so great. And yeah, there's nuance. You can look at it both ways. It doesn't have to be one thing. And I think, again, for me, that is one of the great things about Star Wars. It isn't, it doesn't have to be one thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Here's the last one I'll say, just because I'm thinking about Sheev. I really love in Rise of Skywalker, the long have I waited, which sounds so, deep and evil, right? And then the switch for my grandchild to come home. It just always cracks me up because, like, you're not fooling anybody. You're not like, here's the butterscotch candy that I know you like, kid. Like the thought of him trying to sound loving and grandfatherly while, rotting and hanging from a hook is so funny to me.
Love that.
All right. Any other moments of comedy before we move on to our last part of Star Wars to discuss?
Unless you can count Carrie Fisher press interviews in 2015, I'm good.
One of the greatest comedy things
ever
associated to Star Wars is Gary the dog being on the press tour. Yeah, so the final thing we're going to discuss, and again, there are many different ways we could break down all of the elements of Star Wars. This is just what we're doing for this episode, and there are many more possibilities. But we're going to discuss the cute. And part of the reason I want to discuss that is, for me, it is a part of the legacy of us doing the ForceCenter podcast. Because for me, there was a period in my life where I either ignored or endured the cute, right? I wanted Star Wars to be cool or serious or funny, but I didn't want it to be too cute. And as I grew up, I backed off of that. But in particular, we started the podcast with our friend Jennifer Landa, and she's such a huge proponent of the Ewoks, such a huge proponent of the cute and the silly and the fun and the whimsical, but in particular, the cute. Such a champion of the Ewoks that it really made me go, I'm not going to just go, yeah, it's a part of it. I'm going to actually let myself enjoy it and celebrate it. So that's part of the reason I wanted to be sure to include cute in particular. So for you, Ken, I'm curious about your cute journey, but also what parts of Star Wars cuteness have burrowed into your heart?
All the creatures. That Walkling in Return of the Jedi probably broke down the barriers early for me. I am such an animal fan. And also grew up with, I collected stuffed animals as a kid. I was one of those kids and had to, by sixth grade, was like, I guess I got to put them away and I got to create some story that you're all going on a vacation and I don't get to go. It's a very tearful moment. And that a lot of it, I think, comes from that Walkling who's scared of 3PO and Return of the Jedi. But as far as my journey with cute, I went through the period of like, I had no problem with Ewoks. Why would you? They're heroes. They help save the day to, oh my God, those stupid teddy bears. I think you can see the zippers. I've been there too. I get it, but it's important to note, and I remember a discussion you and I had around the Porg in Last Jedi, the one that's in the cockpit, and how it's part of the fight. It's part of the fight, and it takes all kinds, especially the cute and the crystal critters. We with Volptis, they saved the day too. Guess what? They're cute too. They're my fiance loves those characters almost as much as she loves the Porgs, and that's a lot. And so cute has this big place because cute is part of the galaxy, and don't overlook cute because Leia doesn't, and that helps win the day. So I've had that journey too, and the influence of Jennifer Landa, absolutely. How could you not just feel the joy for the Ewoks? I have another friend, as well, Madeline Rue, a great author, wrote a piece, that Eclipse piece in the from a certain point of view, New Hope book. Giant Ewok fan. Held an Ewok-themed birthday party about 5-6 years ago I was at. With Ewok trivia, the Caravan of Courage playing long before you could get into Disney+. And I remember, this is before you and I started ForceCenter, and I wasn't talking about Star Wars every day. And I thought it was, Ewoks, quaint. By the end of it, I was just like, yeah, they have their place. They have their place in fandom, and it's not just when you're young. It's all through your life. So yes, there's my journey with cute.
Yeah, it is so important because the cute characters often represent um that idea that everyone matters, right?
Yeah.
And that we shouldn't just judge by appearances. I would argue that Yoda is cute. Yoda was cute to me, but he was
Mm.
cute in this weird way, right? That
Yeah.
Yoda felt kind of like me. I was like, he's a little weirdo that people are gonna try to dismiss, but there's actually great wisdom there. So I think that's a big part of it. What for you then are you got the walk lean listening to 3PO's story. I'm right there with you. That I love that 3PO moment, and that walk lean is incredibly cute. And then terrified. What are the other kind of cute moments for you that you love?
Yeah, I will cite the porks again. I'm such a fan of the porks. I just all on board. But the other one, it really it jumped out this week to me rewatching the Rise of Skywalker. I actually really love Dio, and Dio's cute. And
Yes.
what friend? He's cute. J.J. Abrams, good job voicing Dio. But going to that lesson you're talking about, and how even Poe has some moments of, Conehead, Coney, what's he, and Finn's got to step up, and how it's this lesson of, Rey passes on life energy, BB-8 sees that, is giving, forms this connection with Dio. Dio ends up knowing the way to exegol. It's just all there for you, all wrapped up in this little remote control wheel. And it's easy, I think, in modern times, probably all times. I mean, we're talking about the Ewoks, and, that's almost coming up crazy enough on 40 years of that. But I think it's very, very easy to get cynical about cute in Star Wars, because cute doesn't have a prominent place in a lot of other big franchises, right?
Yeah.
I think it's not unique to Star Wars, definitely not saying that, but it's on display in a more powerful way. And so it's very easy to look at Dio and go, they just needed a new toy. Grogu, they need a new toy. Ewoks, Gary Kurtz says they needed new toys, and he's grumpy about it. It's very easy to get cynical about it, but I think there's great lessons behind it. So I'm a big fan of Dio. Really am.
Yeah. Dio is really, really great. I think he's cute, he's powerful, and he comes from a long line of cute droids, right? R2 was cute back in the day. R2 was lovable, and BB-8. We just had an episode talking about that teaser trailer from The Force Awakens that came out in 2014, and nobody knew anything about this little ball except for he was rolling.
Yeah,
he was rolling hard away from something. It looked like he was rolling away from something, not towards something. And then you get Dio, and I think a common thread in a lot of these things is these cute characters is they serve this great contrast between the villains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if in the audience they elicit empathy, like a natural instinct to help or protect, right? And then you imagine just like, Vader would happily cut BB-8 in two.
Right into.
I know I'm jumping timelines there, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they can also kind of be this picture of like what you're fighting for, like if this is about the light side and the dark side, if it's about hope and fear and fighting for empathy, of just like, you need those pictures of, what are we fighting for? Like just, things that are joyful and fun and whimsical,
Right. Yeah.
Couple examples for me. The porgs are great. The porgs, I think, were really grabbed the mantle of cute in Star Wars. There's so many different shots I love, but I kind of just love the absolute comedy of the three of them on the cockpit just harassing Chewie, right? And one of them just wearing some crap on their head.
Yeah.
Did they mean to do that? Did it end up there? Who knows? The mystery of it is great. We were both big fans when the animated series was on, Star Wars Resistance. There's a great kind of background through line of the janitor figure. The character's name is Opipit. They they're shorter. They got a little jumpsuit. They got some cleaning equipment, a giant pumpkin head, some goggles, and a little hat. Could have included them in the weird, just absolutely ridiculous little character. But it has such humanity and has this ongoing story of just trying to keep this base clean, and people keep messing it up. Opipit's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Love a good runner of a joke, and Opipit is an underrated character, but we love him.
Underrated. Yeah. And I think for cute, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about old Grogu. He was a character that obviously the cuteness, the weirdness, but the cuteness was just so powerful and so much of a story of like who could let this character
Mm.
go to doom and torture, right? But for me, I could have included this in comedy. It's a moment that sometimes I just think about and I start laughing. Uh, I love so many Grogu moments, but not when Grogu takes the cookies, right?
Yeah.
From the other classmate, right? Grogu's great hunger had been established at this point.
Yes.
And look, not paying attention in class, looking at the cookies, knowing what Grogu cares about. It's also funny. The revelation once he's taken the cookies, great. But the moment that makes me just laugh alone in my home sometimes, Ken, is when he tries peace first. And he puts out his little hand of like, you could give those to me. That's a thing you could do. They will be mine one way or another, but you could just hand them to me. There's just something so cute about that look on his face that's just, I don't know, it's so relatable from little kids to animals to your own memory when you see something you want and just like,
Absolutely.
I see you have a frozen pizza. You could give that to me. Like it's I love it so much.
Yeah, I love the way he decided. The way he said he decided to use peace, as if violence was the next choice, and he might have gone that far for those cookies, which I understand.
I think he might have fought for those cookies.
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility. Any other cute thoughts before we wrap up?
I mean, the Grogu stuff is it's pretty impressive, and it is so big for a reason. There's great purpose, great great depth to the character of Grogu. But yeah, even I have not stopped finding him cute.
Right.
And I know in this house, it's just if I want to put Grace in, just calm her down, put her in a good mood, just put on some Mandalorian. Even him running from the ice spiders in chapter 10, when he's scurrying along the ground like, oh, this ain't good. My first reaction is not, no, get out of there. It's, oh, look at him run. It's just a victory on every level.
Yeah, his little sachet of terror there is awfully cute, even when he's panicked and screaming. Yeah. Anyway, we could talk about cute for a long time, just like all these topics. But Ken, I want to wrap up with this question for you.
Yeah.
Is there a single moment in Star Wars that for you exemplifies all of the ingredients we've been talking about? Emotional depth, thrilling adventure, weirdness, comedy, cuteness, all at the exact same time.
See, this is the comedy and the cuteness, which is all over Star Wars. That was the challenge. I was like, okay, because you're thinking of single moment Star Wars. All right, immediately I'm going to go to the Emperor's throne room for that fight. And like, not a lot of cute in that one. I don't know. maybe a little Palpatine was cute at times, but not there. I'm going to submit this answer, and that is the Battle of Krait.
Oh, wow.
Great. Emotional depth. There's so much there. The Resistance making their last stand, Luke showing up, lessons of redemption and whatnot with Kylo. We could go on there. The thrill and adventure. Can they destroy the cannon? These little ski speeders stick together. Will they survive? Weirdness. It's a salt planet. It's got salt, and they're in a cave, and there are these little crystal critters around, and they save the day, and they're so cute. And then, of course, you get the comedy of even not just the porks, but even one of your favorite moments, Joseph, is tied around the Falcon showing up and saving the day, and Kylo just being blow that thing out of the sky because it ties to this hatred the First Order has for the Falcon. So it's all on display in a big way there.
That is so great. I think you nailed it. I think my example, I have to stretch to get to the cute. I'm going to be honest. I have to stretch. But for everything else, I'm going to go back to the first film, go to Star Wars. And I think a lot of Star Wars is baked into Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan harassing Luke Skywalker at a bar. You got the thrilling adventure because it is this young kid, taking his first step into a larger world. Certainly a world he doesn't fully understand or know how to navigate. He's immediately confronted with conflict, and it's weird conflict, right? It is, as the action figure was called back in the day, it's a walrus man making weird grunting noises, and this guy who's kind of scarred to look pig-like, right? He's been called Pig Guy. You got this utter weirdness of these aliens getting up in Luke's face for absolutely no reason. You know, I've made the joke that this is the original YouTube comment of just like, I know you didn't ask, but I don't like you. And my friend doesn't like you either. You haven't even done anything. You haven't even posted a video on YouTube yet. And we don't like your content. Like it is, it's so just intense. And to me, kind of funny in that of just like, it's this compression of the young novice being harassed by, you know, the sort of seedy, jaded world in the form of these two characters. And you got, of course, the thrilling adventure of in release order. This is the first time we see a lightsaber in action, right?
Right.
You got all that weirdness, all that bit of comedy, and it is this suddenly this moment of, for me, a little bit of the emotional depth here is not just Luke out in experiencing the galaxy. Right from the start, you see the Jedi philosophy at work, right? Of Obi-Wan's like, come, let me get you something. He's trying to de-escalate, you know?
Yeah.
And as soon as they are unwilling to de-escalate, he ignites his blade in defense of someone else, right? It's
perfect.
A Jedi using the Force for defense. Maybe not knowledge in this time, but Obi-Wan certainly has the knowledge to know, they're taking the blasters out. Got to end this quick. And he does. He ends it very, very quickly. I'm not going to say that the severed limb is cute. So I'll go to elsewhere in the scene for cute. Within the cantina, Cabe, the Chadra fan, reaching paws up for the drink. That's cute.
I think that's absolutely cute. And Luke's naivete is cute. It's endearing.
It really is. Sorry about that.
As you and I have discussed, that scene's all about me going to a bar for the first time. And I had that in my brain. Like, I'm going to get attacked and arms are going to get chopped off. I can't do this.
No, we had similar formative experiences. I remember a couple of times at a bar when like, I don't know exactly how to order this from this bartender who seems very gruff, and I just hope that the people next to me don't get so offended by my poor drink ordering that they threaten to attack me, because I don't have an Obi-Wan with me.
No, get yourself an Obi-Wan, kids.
That is our big conclusion to what makes Star Wars good. If that's a question, the answer is get yourself an Obi-Wan, kids. Any final thoughts from you, Ken?
No, I absolutely love diving into this thing, revisiting some things we've discussed, and just how it can still mean so much to you, and also new things emerge, and that's why we continue to go back to these wonderful discussions: the powerful, the thoughtful, the insightful, and the cute. It's all part of Star Wars.
Yeah, and this has been a really fun discussion to kind of revisit some of our favorites and really wrestle with what resonates about them. But also for me, it's just this is why I love doing this podcast. I finish the day recording just wanting to watch some Star Wars, because it has elements of many other things have some of these elements. But it's such a unique combination of these elements. I think that's while I'll always go back to it, and why I'll always think Star Wars is good and even great.
Yes.
So with that, Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
Hey, we are the ForceCenter podcast, and we can be found on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. You can like our Facebook page at ForceCenter Podcast. Podcasts available on a lot of different spots, but none more important right now than Acast, our new home for the podcast. But you can still find us everywhere, including audio versions coming out on YouTube as well. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Our most popular item is the Speculate Responsibly t-shirt, an idea that emerged following the days of The Last Jedi. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. We always love having new patrons come on board. And once you become a patron, you can get access to our Discord server, where a group of wonderful Force Center friends discuss and celebrate Star Wars every day. You can follow me at Ken Napzok, or go to my website, kennapzok.com. I do stand-up comedy as well, for those that don't know. And I got a show coming up in Washington, D.C. 4 shows, actually. You can get tickets through there. Joseph, where can they find you and all the other wonderful things you do?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. One of the things I like to do there is share one of my other Star Wars passions, which is action figures. I do some fun, not unboxing videos where I can't quite bring myself to open all of my Star Wars action figures. So if you're interested in that and other comedy adventures, you can check me out on social media. Also have a website at josephscrimshaw.com, and from there you can find all sorts of other things. I do stand-up as well, so I have some comedy albums that you can find there. You can find links to my other podcast, Obsessed, shows I've written for, all kinds of stuff on my website at josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for upside-down frogs and vats and baby Ewoks and everything in between, this has been ForceCenter.